There we go. Greetings, everyone. On a Sunday afternoon here on Miami Beach with Nick Nicola. You don't have to be a mask now. And
Doing clashes against the sun,
and then we're about to get into our usual ritual here of conversation. Um, Something that caught my attention earlier, Nikki brought up, and it'd be a good way to start off this segment, was the history of the Kitchen Club. The original Kitchen Club, which Nikki had asked me a few questions to validate on the history, which we'll get into later.
Room, I remember.
Well, Nikki was there because Nikki was with us at Club Beirut at the Delano Hotel, where we started with Dennis. Alonso Brito and Doc Wiley led us to the Kitchen Club from there. Um, at the time, Jasper was the bartender, and Robbie J was the doorman, and Matt was
What
also.
about the owner? The owner that agreed
Jonathan Lewis and was one of the financiers for Beirut's concept and the equipment for Dennis and the Watchdogs, and then Timmy Kasdan and Larry Einbinder were the owners of the actual hotel. But really, this had to do more with Dennis and Doc going back to Beirut and the inertia that was created. I met Doc at Specs Music. I was working at the Miami City Ballet on Lincoln Road as the box office clerk. I was 17, and then Doc and I worked together at Specs Music during the vinyl days on US 1, South Miami. And
Uncle
he's
Sam, too.
and then he well, before Uncle Sam's was Tao Tao Records, which people don't talk about, and Y&T Dance on the beach. And I'm sure there are plenty others before my time, going back to decades before that. So we're leaving this off at vinyl, the vinyl days before the crossover to digital. So we had
There
guys.
was a store down in the Grove, Yardbird Records.
Okay, yeah.
That was a cool
I heard
spot.
about that spot. Yardbird. Alan Trabo would know about that. Yeah. Alan, it's funny because I know that this came up as a contentious topic. Here we go with the Kitchen Club. There's a lot of different things that go on with the history of South Beach, and people, like to toot their own horn and take credit for things, and a lot of times they take credit for things they didn't actually do or had anything to do with. So yeah, going back to Alan, he was the DJ at the Village Inn, uh, and amongst other nights he had spread around town prior to me ever being involved in the scene. Um, and Alan and I had met back then when he was a DJ and I was not.
What about mine? Ruben?
Well, I was about to introduce that part of the conversation. So Mont, what happened was, this is a story about the Kitchen Club. So many different stories and versions. This is the real deal. This is the real true story because I was there from the very beginning. Dennis and Doc took us all, the whole crew, to the Seagull because the Einbinders and the Kasdans, who owned the Delano at the time, also owned the Seagull, which was a 35 years old, strong at that time gay club with a lot of history behind it. A lot of transvestites would line up there and do shows, and it was a crazy spot. Amongst other things that went on there, there'll be more stories about that. But so what happened was we closed down for asbestos, and we had wound up going down to the other half behind the transvestite club, which was the old kitchen of the Seagull Hotel. So we took various artifacts left over from that and hung them from the wall, spatulas, spoons, and different utensils, and spray painted fluorescent colors. On our mom and pop's shoestring budget, fluorescent colors contrast against black walls. And it was makeshift DJ booth and bar that we built. Um, I know Alan was around at that time, just like Rat. Rat was there predominantly involved because Rat's the one who bought. Rat came, yeah. Rat was part of, but the DJing. Nikki, let me speak for a minute. So the thing, Rat was always. I met Rat through Mont. No, sorry, let me put that the other way around. I met Mont through Rat, and so Rat and Dennis were telling me that, because I was the DJ at the Kitchen Club, spinning house music, and electronic new beat and techno and funk, rap, and stuff. You know, a very New York oriented program because I was from New York. I just came down. This is like in the '80s, and so then Rat and I had met through Beirut. Um, I heard about the legendary DJ Mont who came into town because everybody spoke about Mont very favorably and high, high favorably, high accolades for his accomplishments. New Wave Lounge, Fire and Ice, which I know in Fire and Ice a lot of people try to take credit for a lot of Mont's work there too. I know there's another DJ, Rusty. I think his name was Rusty Torres. That was before him. That was, from what I understand, yeah, it was more of a disco DJ. But at the Kitchen Club, I was the first DJ. Um, if other people say they spun one record there or something, it must have been when we were closed and they were friends with Doc, because that the only DJ there was me for the first few months that we were pretty empty. I remember Matt would go to the Delito Hotel and the Sassoon Hotel, and he would solicit the tour guides to say, hey, you know, for every 100, you know, for every 20 freaks you bring in from, you know, the hotel, we'll give you $100 bar tab. This, back in the '80s, that was pretty good. So we had a lot of those, you know, German guys with the spiky haircuts and the fanny packs and the white legs or burnt legs, and they would dance all night and drink. It was fun. So, but when Mont came into the scene and he was actually pitching a deal with Club New to do the back door on Tuesday nights, that's when the seed was planted in my mind. Like, okay, if this guy Mont comes in and splits the nights with me, we're gonna. It's probable that we're gonna do really good, and it'd be great for me because nobody knew me as a DJ, and you know, being side by side with a legend like that would give me exposure. And sure enough, it worked out exactly as I wished it to work out, even better.
Who's your friend that passed away from New York? Top DJ, remixer. I saw you in the movie theater, first Batman movie. I met him. I didn't know who he was. This is a very famous
He passed
guy.
away?
I think so.
I don't know.
Very famous guy from New York.
Let's stick to the story for right now. We'll get back to that one. And so then what happened was Mont came in, and within less than a month, the word got around, and we did do some advertising in New Times and word of mouth and soliciting flyers hand in hand. Next thing you know, we had lines around the block to get in. I left eventually, and you know, within not too long of a time after it got really packed out, and Mont took over the club, and I was doing Avenue A, which was more of my speed, house music, introducing house music to Miami, which that's another segment of, you know, highlighting that history. Yeah, but for today, I just on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, I constantly make time for Nicky here because he's a comrade from the old days, allied brother, family by now, and for a long time. And
Ex-New Yorkers.
you know, I learned a lot from Nicky since I was young on many different levels, spiritual level, music level, artistic level. But this guy is a walking billboard for Hollywood, script writing, movies, the history of cinema, A to Z, soup to nuts, screenwriting, the exact, you know, details and nuances of painting. What do you call yourself? 360-degree
Artist. That was given to me, that title, by my friend Miro, who was a cinema, you know, in Rome, Italy. That was my dream, to work at Cinecittà. He did work there, and he knew the biggest stars, Sofia Loren, Fellini, everybody. He worked with Dino Risi. Dino had written Scent of a Woman, and then they made it in English years later here. So anyway, when he met me, he said, hey, you seem to like know the film, know the music. I said, yeah, my mind automatically does that immediately. The scene with the music, the editing, how much music. But I wasn't raised anywhere near LA. It's like when you look long enough and you observe any phenomena, meaning music, film, theater, you start to see patterns of what works. If people said, you know, Scorsese's great, or Brian De Palma, or the other guy from The Godfather. Well, why is he great? Let's see. The critics say this, the people say this. Let's see what makes it happen. And then you extract subconsciously, I think in my case, I never studied this in school, the formulas. You know, especially Godfather 1 and Godfather 2, those movies there are still hot now. They're like a template for things to come. So I like the template. Let's see the template, and why you can't reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already done. You just do your copy of it, your spoke on the wheel. And, you know, constantly learning every day, your art form, whatever terms you want, you go back to it, you know. Music.
So Nicky, you've worked also with the Gibb brothers from the Bee Gees.
I know, I met them. I didn't. I wish I could have worked with them because Barry, to me, like I was 17. I was on Orchard Beach in the Bronx. All of a sudden, I heard that first song, the New York mining disaster. I said, "Wow, who does this? Who did this?" I thought it was the Beatles. And Robert Stigwood, who had taken over managing them, he strategically placed the record out with a beat. Make you guess who they were. People thought they were the Beatles. It was like a copy sound, and then they ran. Great work. Barry told me he wrote that. He was about 16 years old. Never studying music officially, not reading music, not writing it. How could this happen? Barry told me he believes he was a European conductor in his past life.
That's pretty cool.
An explanation of how you're born with skills that are not apparently schooled, but you know what you're doing.
Right.
And you adapt.
Well, yeah, I've only heard great reviews of them as people and friends that have dealt with them on different levels here, as artists, of course. So, anyways, getting back to the focus, Nicky's been there since our transition at the day back on South Beach when people used to say to us, "Why do you live on South Beach? It's a ghetto, it's a slum." We missed that part of South Beach, believe it or not. At least I do. Because the rents were cheap. There were so many great artists and people out here. Great vibe. And let me tell you, the elderly who they squeezed out of here, there was a lot of love on the beach. You can feel an energy here that's really like no other, besides the palm trees and the sea salt and the things coming off the bay.
I only experienced that in the West East Village of the 60s. The young people creating something new. And I remember Jimi Hendrix Cafe Bar, the East Village, the Anderson Theater, the Fillmore Theater, and then South Beach.
So as I was saying, Nicky was here at that time. If you look on the Making of South Beach page, our page we run, you'll see guys like Red, the Dread guy. You'll see Bobby Radical, who runs the page and did the documentary. You'll see other DJs like Carlos Menendez, and we have like Danny Tenaglia, who was out on the mainland mostly. Luis Diaz. No, Danny's alive, very well.
Okay.
He's doing very well. Oh, you saw Danny and I at the theater back at the Byron. Okay,
When
back
you
film
introduced
festival.
me, I didn't know who he was.
The film festival.
Yeah, he wasn't from Miami, but you said, "Oh, this guy's pretty good." He was a top.
Oh yeah, I looked up to Danny. I always have. He was a big influence for me as a DJ when I was a kid, and still is.
I like when Ruben makes me meet guys here, and then we exchange notes on the early '70s, like Club Haven, the Church, Sanctuary.
Joey Madonia. I hooked you up with him on
Yeah.
occasion that you
And
guys
the
discussed that
records,
history.
how disco, and this is early '70s. I started going to clubs in '65, the Metropole, and then underground clubs, and then that formula seemed to come uptown after Studio 54, uptown, and then it hit everybody, the world. And the Bee Gees capitalized on it.
Right.
They became, the movie.
Rat Bastard recorded at the East Sync Ocular Noise Exchange with Luciano, Inner Circle, Bad Boys, the theme of Cops. Our circle and our clique and our era was very iconic on so many levels, from the underbelly to the street level of the models and the Versace's and the Madonna and other people, big celebrities that were kind of hanging out when it was still the best kept secret here in South Florida. And of course, guys like Louis Canales, the unofficial mayor of South Beach, we used to call him, greatly contributed, as such as Gary James, an old partner of mine that I was his DJ for Out the Way, and Arel Ramos, guys coming in from from the cold start, when there was nothing here and it wasn't house music. But I want to go back to the Kitchen Club because it's so iconic, and thanks to guys like Mont, who really forged its identity very strongly. Mont used to tell me, well, we speak regularly, Mont and I. Hello, Mont. I hope you've seen this. Um, Mont and I FaceTime. We face chat. He's in Copenhagen. We do it pretty frequently, and we speak about everything, the world, life, how he's doing, how I'm doing. He's doing very well. He's on the second book, Sex, Drugs. No, sorry, Sex, Wax, and Rock and Roll. That's right, right? And it's all about his life story, and it has, from what I understand, episodes of the Kitchen Club in his time in South Florida and Lauderdale. So Mont and I speak regularly about like I know there's people who have kept that name alive, the Kitchen Club. They've taken it on the road, so to speak, a couple of decades ago. I don't know what time exactly. I think it was in the 90s, probably early 90s, from what I understand, when Mont left. A guy named Aldo. Yeah, but from that, there's been heavy contention on like who started the Kitchen Club and why. Well, I am literally the first DJ ever at the Kitchen Club, and I can tell you, without Mont, there would have been no Kitchen Club. Well, without Dennis and Doc and the rest of the crew, of course, but Mont's contribution, dwarfed anything I could do at the time because I wasn't even programming that kind of music really. He took me under his wing and I learned a lot from him. We became very close friends. I was more with disco, house music, rock.
You remember the live bands like Frontline Assembly?
Yeah, those concerts Mont booked. The Kitchen Club generated the top volume sales in the whole entire world for Wax Trax Records out of Chicago, which was the prominent industrial label that was a precursor to the cyberpunk movement. Now, remember, this is going back before the millennium, a decade before the millennium.
What year was all this?
This is 89, 91, that's 89, 91. Mont really hit it home with Killing Joke live concert there. I mean, how are you going to talk about the Kitchen Club and not mention, Mont, Sherrard, DJ Mont? I was there. I have no problem, even as the first DJ there, to say if it wasn't for that guy, there wouldn't have been, the success of the Kitchen Club. I mean, we all were contributing. Don't get me wrong. It's not only one person, but there seems to be a lot of controversy with like who took credit for what.
Excuse me,
And, yeah.
the success, the mega success of Ultra Festival. You think those guys came to that club and listened? I'm sure they did. It wasn't accidental.
Well, I remember when Alex Ohms was like a bouncer I don't know, was it Tropics when he had longer hair and he looked like a soccer player back then, and it's funny, like then I learned that he opened up Devox and he had great success with Ultra. Now my history is very wide range as far as programming music. I always had an interest in different kinds of music. I didn't stay stuck in one genre. That worked against me at some point in the beginning because the purists of whatever genre were like always like, oh well, he plays this with that. But if you look at Mont, Mont would play some rubber dub, reggae and mixed with punk, post punk, electronic music, ska. 70s rock, the theme to the Flintstones or whatever the hell he felt, whatever he felt like putting in, and he rocked it. He was an innovator. Like I had seen the best DJs in the world, growing up in New York and being around different DJs, different countries, and I could tell you, Mont definitely deserves the accolades of one of the best DJs on the planet, programming wise and technically. I learned a lot from Mont. So. I just want to put that out there because Nikki and I meet regularly and we kind of have like our intel reports, and that's just how it is. We're artists. We're in different circles and we kind of meet up in the middle somewhere with the same people at times. And so if you're that DJ and you know who you are and you're going around saying that you were the first DJ at Kitchen Club and people pushed you out, Stop that. That's a lie. Last time we went out to lunch, you took me out to lunch, and I had that conversation with you. I told you, don't say that because it's not true. You never spun a record there, and I'm not going to mention your name. I'm not going to pull your card, but if you're talking behind the scenes, it's getting back, and people are learning about it. And it's why are you doing this? It's enough for everybody. You have your own stuff that you did. Why do you have to take from others? And why do you have to elevate yourself by, putting others down or creating a distorted view of others? That's not cool, man. Like if you want to be a don, if you want to be a real motherfucker, man, act like one. There's plenty of punks out there and plenty of people talking trash. Why be one of those people? So that's all I have to say about that. And this is going to be our first episode, I guess. Nikki and I have recorded a few actually in the past. I've never really uploaded them. Today, I feel like we've gotten through the rehearsals part of it. Got a feel for it, and we're going to find different locations. Nikki's got a lot of great stuff to contribute. His history, his knowledge of music and cinema, different scenes. It's amazing. I mean, like I said, since I was a teenager, since I was 17, I learned a lot from this guy.
I met Phil Spector at the Metropole Club in '65. He had a real building, probably had an office there. And I remember first concerts, the Kings, State Clark 5, the Murray K shows. When I saw Gene Pitney sing, I said, oh man, look at that guy's voice and the melodies. All the way, meeting Bowie a few times, the New York Dolls are the personal friends of mine, in the scene of the early 70s. And then, of course, I learned that a little bit too soon, but I occasionally come back with product that we're trying to market some things. A few people here changed my life. I met Harold Prince, the director of Phantom of the Opera, producer-director. Robert Evans, the head of Paramount Films. Clyde Davis. I would have never met these guys in the South Bronx, let me tell you. So I'm glad I stayed for the party here.
Right on. I'm glad you stayed too, man. When I see the videos of Cafe de Sica, one of Nicky's projects, brilliant, like all his other works. I have a feeling of time traveling and a great time and
Actually,
great friend that I was fortunate to have met and learned so much from. And we have other mutual friends because a lot of you out there know Nicky. Don't front, you know who you are. And so,
including doctors in New York.
Nicky knows a lot of people, put it that way. And anyway, so we're gonna have fun with this because our primary objective is to have fun doing it and networking. Want to meet some new people, some new blood, even if you've been here for a while. I haven't met you. Let's link up. Hit me down here in the comments and leave a message. I'm also not scared to fire back to the people who are going to try
Not
to.
like it.
So yeah, maybe you don't like it, or you feel like what I'm saying is other than the truth in some way. Well, bring it on. I mean, I don't really feel like wasting my time arguing with people, but because on our page we have over 8,000 followers. The Making of South Beach, and we're very picky about who comes in. A lot of people want to come in, we don't let them in. And the thing is, we're not trying to promote inaccuracies. We're trying to give credit to those who deserve the credit for their sweat equity, their work, their vision, their efforts, their contributions. And there's many. But we're going back to the very pivotal moment, the crossroads where it all happened. That's our starting point here. When I say where it all happened, speaking of what happened right after the mess from the Mariel boat lift and all the spree of crime waves and different things that went on the beach that people didn't even want to come to the beach. The rents were cheap.
I was thinking because of the current situation of crime here, rampant, that those best years, let's say from when the News Cafe opened in '87 to '97, they were like, this was the only city in the world that mattered for all kind of pleasures. But it was also very dangerous. Parallel to it, with the robberies everywhere, crack dealing, the Marielito guys. It took over 10 years for that crowd either to die off, go to prison. A few guys left and they changed their lives. But it was funny. There's the daytime, everything, and the clubs at night.
Yeah, some of those guys were part of the scene too, and they made it. without them, Miami wouldn't have the flavor it has.
Miami
So,
Vice,
so, so,
Prelude,
we know a lot of the Vice guys too that ran out here.
Scarface, the actors.
Soup to nuts. We covered all here, and so what I was getting to was that we used to, as a hobby, as a pastime, we used to make fun of the people. Yeah, I was younger back then. This was over 30 years ago. What we call the bridge and tunnel people, just like in New York City, they have that term. I think that's where it was coined. People that wanted to come to South Beach to be cool or hip on the weekend, like weekend hipsters, and then they'd leave. But they weren't really about the culture. They weren't about the
Just having a
music.
good time. They
You know,
wanted a good time.
the guys we're talking about, everybody involved in our camp had studios at home or had access to a studio.
They lived
Had
nearby.
a a whole pallet full of paints and frame stretching equipment and stuff to
Recorded,
all kinds of things that were going on, fashion designing, sewing machines, grant writers, grant makers, restaurateurs, everything from the bus boy to the cab driver to the DJ and everybody else. Not to leave anyone out, we'll get to them all. So, anything you want to say, Nikki, in closing?
Well, again, I had lived up from McDougal Street 66, meeting Jimi Hendrix, the Yardbirds, the clothing stores, that scene, the Loving Spoonful, into the East Village of 67, 8, 9. I worked at the Electric Circus, famous club. Jerry Brand just died, may rest in peace. He was ahead of the game. The Fillmore, I was there when it even closed. 71. Bill Graham was fighting with people outside. They claimed they made the place and they weren't allowed for the last night, which was reserved for newspaper people, record executives. The Anderson Theater, where Jimmy Page reformed the Yardbirds to the